Cool, yeah. So my name is AJ. I'm a chef in New Jersey. I've been cooking professionally for about 17 years. I started cooking because I needed to save money for my first car, so I started washing dishes. Quickly realized that that was terrible, and I started cooking. And I eventually became the youngest pancake cook at a pancake house in Sussex, New Jersey. From there, I went to Crystal Springs and kind of worked at the best restaurants that my mom would drive me to. I went to culinary school at the CIA, graduated in 2010. I got lucky and met one of the better chefs in the state of New Jersey and followed him for a couple of years. From there, I opened a bunch of restaurants in New Jersey. I moved to LA, moved to New York, came back to New Jersey. I always come back to New Jersey. I always try and tell people in the food world that New Jersey has the most to offer. It's a smaller version of California. Our growing season just shorter. I was working in Manhattan for the best chef in the country, Grand Achatz, and they were outsourcing products, paying hundreds of dollars a pound for things that I could forage right here in the south of Jersey, western Jersey, everything. So I always come back here and I always try and just cook the best food I can. I pride myself on local food and farm-to-table cooking with a modern American twist. And currently I'm the chef of the Summit House in Summit, New Jersey. So I was exposed to wine pretty early. One of my first jobs was at Latour in Crystal Springs. It has the second biggest wine cellar on the eastern seaboard. We had the biggest collection of Chateau Latour. We would constantly do wine dinners. I was 17, 18, plating desserts and getting to sample some of the best wines coming out of France in the world. It was really special, and it really kind of opened my eyes to how important wine is with food. And when you eat something that is paired with a wine intentionally, it's just so much better. Yeah, I guess one of the most eye-opening experiences for me with wine and food was in 2020, right before the pandemic started. I was invited to cook a dinner at a winery in Napa, and we went out there, we cooked everything over open fire. In the winery, it was a 6-course dinner, and it was one of the first times in my life where the wine mattered more than the food, because we were sitting in a vineyard surrounded by grapes, surrounded by farmers picking the grapes, and it was just like it was beautiful. It was overlooking a whole valley. It was really great. I guess if you're intimidated by wine because, you know, sometimes it's crazy expensive, sometimes these people are sitting there drinking in, telling you that they're detecting tobacco and black fruit, and you're just sitting there thinking, oh, you know, I'm drinking a glass of grape juice with some alcohol in it. That's fine. That's how I think. I can't drink a glass of wine and tell you what the hell it is. I can't tell you where it's from. But you definitely don't need a pedigree to drink good wine. You just have to appreciate what it's doing. And when you're eating a food that the wine accentuates, that's your appreciation. So whether it's a $30 bottle of something or a $3,000 bottle of something, as long as you appreciate it and it makes your dining experience better, then that's all the thing you need. So in order to build the menu for this upcoming event, I kind of deferred to my friend Lee, who knows a lot more about wine than I do. But honestly, I've built menus for wine dinners without ever tasting the wine, just reading the sommelier's notes. I always try and just follow the wine. So if it's like a first course that's something bubbly, I try and go raw and fresh. If it's a white, I try and go like a light fish, a light red with a light meat, sometimes chicken, depending on the sides. It all just depends who you're working with, what kind of wine you're using. And then for this one, I worked a lot with Ben and Lee, and we kind of collaborated. This whole menu was collaborative. We had input from Tom, we had input from Rebecca, and they all know a lot more about wine than I do. I just happen to cook well, so it kind of just comes together. And every time I'm trying to pair food with wine, the goal is to not overshadow the wine with the food, but to put a plate of food in front of people that they're going to remember, and that is well executed, well seasoned, and that pairs with the wine extremely well. For me, pairing the wine with food is all about the acidity in the wine. I think that regardless of what kind of wine it is, all wine except dessert wines have an acidity which accentuate the flavors in the food. So most cases I season the food slightly less so the acidity ups the seasoning in the food. So I'll put a little less salt, I'll put a little less soy, something like that, so that the acidity, when someone takes a sip of the wine after taking a bite of the food, it enhances the flavor in their mouth. I would say if you're an amateur cook but you just like cooking at home, the best way to get better at that is to just do it more. I wouldn't say you should go out and, you know, mortgage your house on Opus One and all these crazy wines, but you should go to the liquor store, choose something with 92 or above points, go to the grocery store, choose something that you want to eat, and then work with it. You know, taste the wine, taste the food, see if it works together. If it doesn't, go back to the liquor store, get a different something. But at the end of the day, if you're happy after eating and drinking, that's the goal. Like, the goal for you and for everybody that cooks and eats and drinks should be joy at the end of it, and you should be happy after you're done eating. That way you've done your job, because no one wants to leave a meal unhappy. So as far as traditional wine pairings are concerned, I try and stick to them, but I also have learned that you don't have to. I had the privilege of working at a restaurant in Morristown called Jockey Hollow, and right before the pandemic, the owner took me to Italy. And while I was there, I had a wine for the first time that I had never heard of called Lambrusco. It's a sparkling red wine. It's bright, it's acidic, it's delicious, but it's still a red wine. But you can pair that with a first course crudo, you can pair that with a first course salad. So when I write wine menus for dinners now, I use that wine, I use other wines, and I don't always follow the traditional sparkling white, light red, dark red, sweet. Sometimes I'll start with like a Lambrusco and move to a light red, and then move to a heavy white, and then move to a dark red, because as long as the food makes sense with the wine, you don't have to follow the traditional steps of a wine dinner. Yeah, I mean, I would say that for this dinner that's coming up in July, if you are not a professional chef and if you are not a professional sommelier, this is like the perfect opportunity for you to come learn a little bit about food and a little bit about wine, because you're going to have professional chefs cooking you a meal. You're going to have professional sommeliers recommending wine. And for me, in my opinion, as someone who's interested in food and wine, to have people with years of experience who have been doing this curating you a wine box and a full dinner menu with recipes, it gives you like a good, solid foundation to then go home and try and recreate it for your friends. You don't necessarily have to buy the same ingredients. You don't necessarily have to build a giant fire. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy all the same wine. But if you have a solid base, then you can go and cook your friend's dinner, and you can maybe smoke pork chops and then grill them. And you can maybe go out and buy a different Pinot Noir and pair with it. And you'd be sitting there thinking, oh, why would I ever pair a Pinot Noir with a pork chop? Because now you know that it works, because these people spent the time, went through the effort, and cooked you a dinner. You experienced the dinner and you're like, damn, Pinot Noir with pork chops, phenomenal. So I would say that this experience for people with a small base of knowledge can just expand them exponentially, and then they can really take it to the next step and really learn on their own. As far as books are concerned, I've read a lot of books through culinary school. I've read a lot of wine books that I didn't really retain the knowledge of, but Setting the Table by Danny Meyer is kind of a life-changing book. It kind of describes how customers in a restaurant are not customers, they're guests. How if you treat everyone that comes through the door as a friend of yours, you'll be successful regardless of how good your restaurant is. And the restaurant business is not, it's a business, but it's not really a business in the sense of like Walmart or Target. The customers are guests, and they all have first names, they have last names, they all have personal experiences. And if you pay attention to all those things, your restaurant will be very good. Another book was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I had the privilege of hanging out with Anthony a lot. He was a regular at a dive bar in Times Square where I worked. So every night I would leave the restaurant at 1, 2 in the morning, stop off, grab a beer, and catch the last train out of the city. He was always there. We had lots of conversations. He was a super cool guy. As far as, I guess, new things that are popping up in the restaurant world, I would be excited about the fact that open fire cooking is now going viral. It's trending all across the country. All the best restaurants that are getting nominated by James Beard Foundation and the Michelin Guide are all using open fire concepts. I happen to like open fire concepts a lot. I really think that I cook well over, natural sources of heat. It's fun trying to figure out how to cook something over a fire without an oven, without a circulator, without a deep fryer. All of these events, they come together extremely well. We all work together very well, and the Lone Pilgrim is going to be a place where not only customers go, but cooks go. I'm going to be there on my day off. I'm going to be, collaborating with these people and just trying to make the best experience possible.